Tesla finally did it. They released the Tesla Model 3 Performance, and the thing here is something that I've been asking for a very, very long time, and I do believe a lot of people have asked for this as well, is to separate the performance versions visually from the rest of the lineup when it comes to Tesla, and they actually did that here, both with, I think, only with the exterior actually. I don't think the changes happen. Yeah, they do happen in the interior as well. So I'm going to talk about what the changes are here. I'm going to compare the Model 3 Performance to the new 2025 Model 3 and also to the previous Model 3 Performance, and let you know why I actually prefer some design features of the previous Model 3. But before we jump in and have a look at the front, side, rear, and also the beautifully upgraded interior finally for a Tesla Model 3, let's have a look at what this Model 3 Performance is all about from this article from Motor Authority. I'm going to link this down in the description. The dual-motor all-wheel drive Tesla Model 3 Performance boasts 510 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque, which Tesla says will get it from 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds and a top speed of 163 miles per hour. The thing here with the top speed with EVs, I'm never really sure how long you can keep that top speed for two reasons. First of all, the range is going to drain very, very fast. Second is going to be the cooling, but they have updated the cooling system here for this Model 3 Performance as well. Range is estimated at about 296 miles. Compared to 341 miles for the long-range all-wheel drive, the current range champ of the Model 3 lineup. Delivers more consistent performance with a 22% increase in continuous power output. I always thought that I have a Tesla Model 3 Performance, and I never really felt a lack of power or a reduction in power, but I guess they increased the continuous power output here. You also have a 32% increase in peak power output and a 16% increase in peak torque. Energy consumption is also down. So the numbers seem very, very good here, and I love the updates of the rear end. It looks fantastic, this design. We have some different features here for the Model 3 Performance that I'm going to talk about. You also have adaptive damping, which is great, and 20-inch forged staggered wheels. The thing is here, now you have staggered setup. So you have 19 inches in the front, 20s in the back. I want to have 20s all around because I just think it looks better. You also have improved track mode. Tesla claims a 5% reduction in drag, a 36% lift reduction, and a 55% improvement in front-rear lift balance compared to the previous Model 3 Performance. And 55% improvement in front and rear lift balance. That's massive because it doesn't look that different from the previous Model 3 Performance. But as I said, we're going to have a look at the differences in a minute. You also have new sports seats. I love what Tesla did with these seats for the Model 3 Performance. It looks so much better than the old seats. Now it actually looks like a car company that's been around for a while and grown up a little bit. We also have this performance badge in the seats themselves. So pricing starts at $52,990. The long-range all-wheel drive starts at $47,700 something dollars, while the base rear-wheel drive is priced at $39,000. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's have a look at this design. So overall, I have to give Tesla a lot of credit for the change that they made for the new 2025 Model 3. This is pretty much what I wanted to see. But the thing here, when we look at the front end of the old Model 3 Performance, I do believe that this is still the better looking front end, because here we have this duck nose in the front end. You see this little styling piece that we have in the front of this panel, and then goes into this lip at the bottom. I do believe that this styling that we have in the front end of the previous Model 3 just looked better, and having the headlights stretch out like this onto the fender itself, it gave it a much more exotic feel for the Tesla Model 3. Now that we look at the new one, this is the normal non-performance new Model 3. We have the headlights being horizontal, first of all, which is a big change for the graphics, of course, not having them be more exotic up on the fenders. They also removed this duck nose that we have in the front. So instead of having that, we now have just a simple lines, 2 or 3 actually horizontal lines. And what this does, it removes any sort of identity that Tesla Model 3 had in the front end. I think it should be the other way around. The first generation of a brand new EV company should maybe look a little bit generic or something like that. but then you should, start to nail or dial in your identity. But here it feels like they just completely removed the identity of the front end of the Tesla Model 3, which is a shame. I don't necessarily like the headlight design here. I want to have them still stick up further in a more exotic feel like we have in the previous one. But looking at the differences here between the normal Model 3 and the Model 3 Performance, great job, Tesla. Great job by changing this up and making the performance finally feel special compared to the rest of the lineup. First of all, the top part, the top half of this front end, everything that's above this line, I do believe is exactly the same as the normal Model 3. But further down, if you look at this, we have this line, and then we have some new vents or some slots here that are actually functional, and this reduces drag, also creates an airflow going in here and then shooting out right here in the wheelhouse. And these wheels look great too. I do prefer this over the turbine wheels. The turbine wheels also looked great on the previous Model 3 Performance, but these wheels look really good. We're going to have more look at that in a minute in the side view. And in addition to that, look at this lower section. We have a pretty static, boring looking lower section with this air vent here for the normal Model 3. But in the Model 3 Performance, yes, they added a more aggressive lip down here, and I do think the overall styling for the air intake itself looks a lot better than the normal long range and the standard Model 3 up here. So thankfully, Tesla did some changes to separate it visually from the normal Model 3. Now looking at the side view here, up top we have the new Model 3, probably the long range. One detail that instantly that stuck out to me when I saw this side view is one detail that is very annoying. You see this line down here at the bottom, it connects beautifully in the side and then connects nicely in the rear bumper, but then we have this line in the front end going upwards. I want to have this also be connected somehow with this one single line wrapping around the entire lower section. But the thing is, they sort of fix that because we have another line further down below this line. Have a look at this. We have this line right here at the very bottom, and then that also cuts into the side view. So they sort of fix this problem that I had with these lines, and then this also comes back very faintly in the rear bumper. So we do have, I would say, we do have one line that wraps around the entire car and kind of have a nice wrapper going all around it. The greenhouse and the front end looks super sporty still. I've always actually been a fan of the Model 3 design. I think it's a beautiful looking design overall. The proportions look nice. It does have the EV proportions because the greenhouse and the A-pillar sticks so far forward that it doesn't feel like we could fit potentially an internal combustion engine under here. Now looking at the Model 3 Performance here, you can see that we do have the new wheels, and I'm not entirely sure, but it sort of looks like maybe the Model 3 Performance sits a little lower maybe than the long range and the standard Model 3. I'm not sure, but here it actually looks like we do have both sides of the wheels in this case actually look like they're both 20s. So I'm a little bit confused. I read somewhere that the front wheel is 19 and the rear end are 20s, but if that's the case, they visually managed to make them look the same size. You can see that we do have the front splitter here, the front lip looking nice, and these wheel design again looking very cool. Beautiful EV wheels for this car. We have another line here now, which is this air vent in the front end, and we have a different diffuser in the back. It's very hard to see, but I'm going to show you exactly what the changes are in the rear as well, and of course the same lines in the body side of the car as well, like we have in the rest of the lineup. Now looking at the rear end, there are a couple of minor changes to the performance, but I don't care. At least they did those changes to separate it from the normal Model 3. We don't have a carbon fiber spoiler up top, a little E39, E46M style spoiler up top that we do have here on the Performance. You can see that barely in this case, but it is there. I love these new taillights. I think they look very clean, very sharp and dynamic looking taillights, but it's still very much a Tesla Model 3. And I do like that they saved money here by keeping this portion, the charging port. They didn't have to redesign the charging port, and that probably saved them a lot of money by having this piece be still intact while working on redesigning the rest of the light assembly that is actually the graphics of the light itself. So very well done there with the taillights. And further down, you can see that we do have a bit of a different diffuser for the Model 3 Performance. Looking up top, we have a straight line here that actually connects to this line in the lower section of the diffuser and then goes up a little bit here in the normal Model 3, but in the Model 3 Performance, it cuts before it meets this edge. So they did make some changes to the lower section of the diffuser here as well. So overall, the exterior design, I do think this is a beautiful looking EV, and the big changes happens, of course, also in the interior in general for the new Model 3. Huge improvement here. The thing I like the most, I think, is going to be the new steering wheel, because the old steering wheel just looked very bland. Now it looks very grown up. Again, it feels like it's coming from a brand that's figured out its identity now. We also, in addition to that, they decided to join the trend here, the Mercedes trend, to have some ambient lighting inside of this, which I think is a fantastic idea. We have a new screen here looking pretty similar to the old one. The stalks for the gear selection is gone. We used to have the, put it in drive, put it in reverse, but now all of that is situated right here on the side of the screen. Now looking at the performance interiors, looking pretty similar to the normal one, but the big news here is that we do have a brand new seats for the Performance, and that is something I made a ton of reviews on the Tesla Model 3, and one of my biggest complaints about the interior for the Performance is that it doesn't have enough side bolstering, which we now have with the new Tesla Model 3 Performance. You can see that sort of here. This looks way more flat, while we have some more bolstering here, down here in the Model 3 Performance. Overall, a great update for the Model 3. I do believe that this is still going to sell really well. I think it's priced very competitively at about $58,000 for the Model 3 Performance. With the new updates that you get and the new Performance, I actually think it's a pretty decent deal. And it won't be long now before we start seeing these new Model 3s everywhere out on the streets. And honestly, I'm pretty fine with that.